There we go. All right, so like I said, today's session is from learning data to learning growth. So it's focused on the data that ASSISTments generates and how to interpret it and draw next steps and conclusions from it. As a reminder, folks who registered for the session will get a follow-up email with a copy of the slide deck and the video recording. The session will be interactive. So you can, we recommend that you go ahead and go to assistments.org and log into your ASSISTments teacher account. Our presenters today, so I'm the facilitator for today's session, Brian Story. I'm the Director of Teacher Engagement with ASSISTments. Prior to this work, well, I've worked for ASSISTments for several years, but prior to that, I was a classroom teacher for a decade in Washington, D.C., and also in Norfolk Public Schools in Virginia. So definitely happy to be here with y'all today. And joining me as well is Charmaine Franklin. I'll let her introduce herself.
Good evening. My name is Charmaine Franklin. I am new with ASSISTments, but not new to using it. I am a nomad, so I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, where most of my teaching career is or was. In Wisconsin, I did a lot of instructional coach work at the state level for math instruction. And then I am now currently in Louisiana, New Orleans specifically, just because of my nomadic spirit. And so I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, Charmaine. So we thought, we'll go ahead and have folks share aloud if you want, or you can just share in the chat if you like, whichever you prefer. But feel free to unmute and share. What's your favorite time of year and why? And I'll just kind of start that off and give folks a chance to think about it. I'd say my favorite time of year it's really any kind of part of fall or spring where the weather simulates the indoors most closely. So it's like when it's like room temperature, a little bit of breeze, maybe not crazy humidity. That's what I like. I don't like the dead of winter. I don't like the summer, especially not here in North Carolina. Only God knows why I decided to live here, but here we are. But yeah, I'd say spring and fall are probably my favorite time of year, just because the weather is a little bit milder, I would say.
Well, I'm in New England, so for me, there is no spring in where we are. So I actually miss spring because I grew up in Baltimore, but summer and fall are my favorite. Just, I like to be outside, and the weather just can't be beat here during those two seasons. Mm-hmm. This is Melissa Hamilton, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Melissa.
So I am in Louisiana, and it is hot, and more hot. We are so excited. We finally got a cool down with a little bit of rain for this week. So our high is only 85. I'm excited. So yeah, my favorite time would be the fall, winter, and spring, more so than summer, because it's just so hot.
Mm-hmm. And especially this year too. I mean, it has been, and I mean, I know I'm in North Carolina. It's not as bad here as it is down there even, and it has been absurdly hot this summer. Like my body can't handle it. Most of our organization is based out of New England, so they kind of generally speaking have like the milder, more pleasant weather, and I'll be like kind of envious of that sometimes when they'll say, "Oh, it's so nice outside." I'm like, it is not here. It is 105 with the heat index here.
Right. All last week it was heat index put us at 110. And so we were in the heat warnings we have been in heat warnings for the majority of the summer. So.
Mm-hmm. And then my European friends be like, well, you Americans, you're so decadent. Why do you have air conditioning? I'm like, you come live in the deep South and you tell me, why, whether or not you'd want to live in that without air conditioning. Okay. Or like, most of America, like you need air conditioning during the summer here. And then they had their heat wave recently, and it's like, well, maybe I'll start to understand. Excellent. Okay, so Moving right along. So we are on the learning data to learning growth section of our free webinar journey of the fall. We started off with the step-by-step guide to getting started sessions earlier in the month. You can always go to our webinar library, and Charmaine is going to drop the link to that in the chat to check out those getting started sessions, which just kind of overview the basics of, like I said, how to get started, how to find and assign content, tips for students, things like that. After we finish the learning data to learning growth sessions, we're going to have some selected deep dive sessions throughout the rest of the fall, where we focus on deep dives on features that we don't necessarily always have time to cover in our regular free webinar offerings. So definitely be on the lookout for that. In order for us to kind of talk about data today, we're going to kind of dive into the assignment report. We're going to walk through and actually act out the common data protocol that we recommend for just your day-to-day. How should you analyze your data and draw conclusions from it? And then talk a little bit about implementing an assessments routine. So some key considerations there before we wrap up. Our goals for today's session are making sure that you as teachers leave the session confident in how to interpret the key data points in the assessments assignment report, draw conclusions based on this data about student successes and challenges, and determine high leverage instructional next steps based on what you see. This session does assume that you understand our content library, how to find and assign, and the student experience. However, if you happen to have questions about any of those things as we go, you can still feel free to ask those. Not a problem. And so, yeah, let's dive into the assignment report. We kind of consider this our secret sauce. Many different digital platforms provide data to teachers based on student performance, but we think that we provide a level of detail that allows teachers to quickly and easily develop more in-depth understanding than just percent right or wrong on particular items that are assigned. And so we recommend using our data to determine interventions at the whole class, subgroup, and individual level. And also just analyzing our data as early and often as possible when you start assigning. It's going to help you to boost your student engagement and help you make the most of the tool. So we'll start with just a notice and wonder. Charmaine is going to share a link to a live data report. As long as you're logged into your teacher account, you can access this. And so we're just going to give you 2 minutes to navigate through this report, explore it. And then when we come back together, have you share any noticings or wonderings either in the chat or aloud based on what you see. So I'm going to start our 2-minute timer, and we will come back together in about 2 minutes. All right, we're going to come back together in about 30 seconds. supposed to be a silent timer. I hate it when they end timers with sirens. Like, who wants that? No one wants that. I'm just going to go over here live to the data report that we shared. Let me make sure I have the correct link open. That's the right one, isn't it, Charmaine? Yeah. All right. And we just want folks to share any noticings or wonderings. Do we have anything? It looks like maybe we have something coming in the chat. Charmaine?
Yes. So Deborah was saying, is the time listed at the top of each student report combined for each session, or is it per assignment?
The time listed at the top. Deborah, could you unmute and share? I'm not quite sure. The only place where we have the time is listed here on the side next to the students. Are you talking about the progress cards up here?
Okay, so I guess I went a little further because I went through the report and it started showing by student. I clicked on a student, and up at the top of the student view, where the time was at the top here, it says time spent is that 3 minutes and 30 seconds, or is that 3 hours and 30 minutes?
Good question. So that is this is a student details report, and basically that shows you the total amount of time right there. It's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that's the total amount of time they spent in this problem set completing it.
Just in the problem set. So it's
Yep.
not a combined, because I see that it's got several. Okay, I see what's going on. I thought that I was noticing additional dates, so it's all the same date.
Yep. And then, this might be similar to what you might see with a student where they open it up and then they close it, and then they open it up and close it. But the most important stuff is the color coded items, which shows you like an amount of time and the attempts that I know it. No more of that siren. So yeah, these color coded rows will show you like the time that they're actually doing something as well.
Okay.
Something I noticed that must be new, because I haven't noticed it in the past, because I've looked at the detailed reports in the past, is the actual assess, where I just clicked on that a few times and it kind of gave you is that only for short answer questions? Because I tend to avoid those, honestly, when I do the assessments. But they actually gave, so that's like feedback you could give to the students. So is that a new feature, or is that been around?
It's been around. It was visualized a little bit differently before we updated the teacher experience, but it used to be that you would click under the column header for an open response and it would take you to a similar screen.
Right.
But we've kind of updated that. And so, yeah, for any open response question, you can actually see all of the student responses for that open response. You can easily score and provide feedback. And if you could even play around with this and do a custom sort and hide student names if you wanted to pull some exemplars and discuss with students.
Right. And I've done all that before with the hide names, but the actual, when I clicked on assess, it actually gave me suggested scores and suggested comments.
So that part, quick comments, that's a new feature that we're rolling out. It's not universal yet, but we are rolling out the ability to just provide quick comments and that score guidance as well. So that's what you were saying. That's
Okay.
a feature
I wasn't sure if I had just missed that in the past.
Yeah, that part is new. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right, anything else we noticed about the data in the assignment report that folks want to call out?
So the X's is the number of times that they attempted that particular problem?
Yep. So that'll show you the number of attempts. You can even click that score chip to see what the attempts were. So you don't have to go all the way down to the student details report. You can just click the score chip here as well. It'll show you that the student made these different attempts before they arrived at the correct answer. And so, yes, that can be helpful. And then if you're ever curious about what these symbols mean, you can also click the scoring rubric up here, and it'll show you what each of those means as well. So thanks for pointing that out. That's great. Yeah, we can go ahead and keep going here. To access your assignment report, there are two different ways you can do that. The first way is through your ASSISTments account itself, and the second way is through your LMS. So I'm just going to live demo those. In the case of, when you're in your ASSISTments account, you can go to My Assignments. You can filter by class if you want to filter by class, and find the report that you want to look at. For a specific assignment, click that assignment and click View Report. When you're in Canvas, it's, basically you just, again, click the assignment, and you can click the embedded link to view your report data. And likewise in Google Classroom, which I'm realizing I don't have open. Here we go. So likewise in Google Classroom, and most, or at least I recommend teachers work out of the classwork tab. You can go to any assignment, click that, and you'll see the embedded link to access your assignment report.
Now, I do have a question as far as the assignment reports go. Is it possible to see multiple classes on the same assessment at one time, or do you have to look at those individually?
That's a great question. That's definitely a feature that we're looking to add in the future. Right now, you do have to look at them on a class by class basis. That's correct. But yeah,
Brian,
go ahead.
And then Melissa's wondering if it's compatible with Schoology.
So you can't assign to Schoology. We are in the process of creating a standalone version of ASSISTments where, you could really, pop a link into any LMS, or just use it, ASSISTments by itself without an LMS like Schoology or Google. But essentially the only way, and, we don't usually recommend this, but if you want to use it with Schoology, you would just want to make sure you have all of your students rostered and classed correctly in a Google Classroom. You can assign to those classes and copy paste the links. As long as you're copy pasting the right link for the right class, it'll work for students. But essentially it's just right clicking on the link in your account, copy this link, and you can drop that into Schoology as long as students are in the correct class that goes with that link. It'll work. And all we'll have to do is make sure they're logged into Google Classroom. So that's sort of a workaround you can use if you really want to make sure that these assignments are appearing in Schoology. Alrighty. So I'm going to go live into the assignment report again and just kind of go through in detail the different features that you can see here. So the first is that you can toggle between a problems view of the assignment report data or the standards view. The problems view breaks down all of the student data by problem. The standards view will break down that student data according to the standards represented in the problems you've assigned. So in the problems view, you have these progress cards at the top. You can see who's not started. You can see who's in progress and when was the last time they worked on the assignment. And you can see who's completed the assignment and the date and time when they completed it. As a side note, if you set a due date, one new feature that you won't be able to see here but does exist, if you set a due date, students can still complete assignments after the due date, but it will show up next to their name how late they were in completing it, just for, if you use that for participation or what have you. So you can now see that as well. In the performance summary for each problem or problem part, you can see the number of students who answered correctly, correct eventually, and then the students who were unable to arrive at a correct answer. You can always click either in the x-axis here or the column headers. You can click the problem to actually see what it was. And you can see sort of like the student view. It'll give you the correct answer and a score breakdown just in a different visual. You can expand this if you want to see it bigger. And then one other feature that we're in the process of rolling out is instructional recommendations. So again, not completely rolled out, but especially for middle school in our IM and Eureka Math Engage New York content, we're adding in these instructional recommendations. So this just goes through, recommended, conclusion or next step if students are struggling with that problem. And then below that is the most important part of our data report, really the secret sauce of it all, which is the detailed report. And so here, each column is a problem or problem part. Each row is a student. You'll see that we give you the average score across the entire class and the whole assignment. And then we give you the individual score averages for each problem. So those are great for figuring out which problems you want to review with the whole class, for instance. Then you'll see common wrong answers. And basically, if 3 or more students choose the same wrong answer, we will tell you what that wrong answer was and the percentage of incorrect students who put that wrong answer. So here you can see 2/3 of students put the wrong answer, 59. Over here, 100% of students put either the wrong answers G and H or A, B, D, and F. So you've got 100% of what your students did wrong right there. So that can be great for student discussions or reflection. And then you've got the individual student rows where you can see each individual student's performance, their scores. Again, you can click these chips to see what they did. This can be super useful, especially like looking at student A here. They didn't get a 0 because they made several attempts and then click show answer. They click show answer on the first attempt. So that might be an opportunity to talk to that student and say, you need to make sure that you're trying to make some good faith attempts before you just click and show the answer. Otherwise, I'm not convinced that you're making your best effort and I can't give you full credit, right? So then in addition to that, the amount of time spent, if they happen to use any hints or explanations that appear, you'll see that. And any open response questions, you'll see this assess button that will, as I mentioned earlier, allow you to score and comment on their open responses. The other important thing to show you in the problems view is that you can click the triple dot next to each student's name and delete their progress. And that'll allow them to click the same assignment with the same link in your class. And it'll start them from the beginning if you want them to try again. So then the next piece is the standards view.
Sorry, can I interrupt you for a second? So
yeah, sure.
If you want them to kind of do an assignment again, just to kind of get data points, so the first set of data you have to it'll be deleted. So you'd have to make you'd have to make a copy of it if you wanted to see comparison on how they did the second time around.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And also one easy way to do that is if you have the assignment listed. So if I just go to that assignment under my assignments, I can actually click the triple dot next to that assignment and click reassign. And then when I'm in here, I can choose, once I've chosen my class, I can actually choose, instead of all the students, pick some specific students so that you can have that data for comparison. Right. It's going to be great also, yeah, when in the future, when you're allowed to kind of compare data across attempts and things like that, that'll make it even more useful. But yes, that's a quick way that you can do that.
Is there any way to download the data so that you can have a report on hand?
I am so glad you mentioned that because I did not, that is the one piece I did not mention just now when I went through the report. So you can download this detailed report in a CSV file by clicking the triple dot right over here and click download as a CSV. And that's going to provide you with all of these data in a CSV file that you can view offline or, use however you like. You do also have the ability, if you're using Google Classroom or Canvas, you can transfer these scores into your grade book for Google Classroom or Canvas. However, we do recommend if this is like a regular assignment for practice and you're assigning it as normal, typically you don't want to use the scores directly as grades, because then you're ultimately penalizing students who are making multiple attempts, persevering, doing all the things you want them to do when they practice, right? But yes, you can download this as a CSV file right here at this triple dot.
So that might actually work if you wanted to reassign it. You could do the download there and then go back and reassign it to get your comparison data.
Yep, that would be another way that you could look at the two side by side. Absolutely. All right. Any other questions about the data report? All righty. So just to recap, you have those student progress cards, the performance summary, which gives you that overview of how many students answered correct, eventually, or incorrect. The detailed report, which kind of gives you the deeper dive on how students did. Within that detailed report, you can see the score across the entire assignment for the whole class, individual problem average scores, student average scores, as well as any common wrong answers. And then there are open response questions. And so we do actually have 2 tips to share about open responses. We recommend that if you do want to use them, and we understand, incorporating math writing is still this like big thing that folks are trying to think about and tackle, right? But you can show this tutorial video that Charmaine is going to share in the chat so that with your students, so that they can get comfortable with open responses. And then if you provide a score and feedback for an open response, just using your LMS or your preferred communication method to let students know either to go look at that or what you want them to do with it. The options are really up to you and how you structure your classroom routines. So just a few things to think about with open response questions there. As I mentioned with the standards report, you have all of the data, same data, but it's just sorted according to the specific standards that are aligned to the problems that you've assigned. And I think I kind of skipped over that a little bit. So let me just show this to you. So it'll show you every standard that was represented in the problems assigned. Then it'll show you the number of problems that are aligned to that standard. And then you see student average scores averaged for each of those specific standards. So if you want to target a specific standard, maybe do red, yellow, and green groups for different levels of intervention based on performance on a standard, this can come in handy. And you can use the sort feature here to kind of see who did what.
Okay, the link that Charmaine put in, when I click on that, it just takes me into my login page.
Oh, for ASSISTments?
Yes.
Oh,
and that's what's happened every time I've clicked on anything that's there. So I don't know, maybe I need to go somewhere else.
I wonder if could you not be logged in? Because it worked for me.
I'm logged in. It's under Deborah Lawrence, but when I click on it, it sends it to a login page and it asks me to log in.
Oh, that's strange.
It's closing me out every time I click on it.
You definitely should not have to be logged in order to view these resources. When you go to assistments.org, does it start you at the home page here?
Let me go back. Yes, log in or sign up is what it says.
Right. But if you start from this page here, you can also access the same resource by going to user resources. And then under support for students, we have that open response tutorial video.
Okay.
Right here as well. So just making sure you have another pathway to get to that as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Let me go back into presentation mode here.
Sorry about that.
No, please. We appreciate any and all questions. So what do you think are the most important data points you'll use on a daily basis in the assignment report, and why? We'd love to hear from you. You can either share again aloud or in the chat. What do you think are the most important data points that you'll use in this assignment report day to day, and why?
So for me, it would be looking at the standards, the progress on the standards. We are currently working towards standard-based grading, and be able to look at the standards, see where the students are succeeding or where there's a mishap. It allows us to be more targeted, and it allows us also to look at how to intervene with each student based on by student by standard.
Absolutely. Excellent. Any other important data points that y'all would highlight?
For me, so I'm actually changing positions from a 6th grade math teacher into special education.
Mhm.
So when I was teaching in the general ed population, of course I would look with my students with IEPs, but how many attempts and also the time they took for each problem, I think was kind of helpful, along with hints requested and things like that, as far as just to see, again, how they persevered and where they might need reteaching. Also, the common wrong answers was helpful as well to see. I'm looking at a report right now from last year where 73% of my students wrote 6 + 13 C, where I knew that when I saw that I had to go back and reteach that, that concept again, because somebody was, they were getting confused somewhere along the line. So those are the things for me in the general report that's the most helpful.
Absolutely. Excellent. So thanks for sharing. A few data points that we recommend, if I can get this to click, there we go, include that class average, which is going to show you, give you the ability to quickly assess whole class understanding on an assignment. Your problem average scores, which identify individual problems for whole class review, and those common wrong answers, which you can use to facilitate discussions around common misconceptions. Obviously you have a lot of different options there. So whatever, is most important to you day to day, that's what you can focus on. We'll just keep kind of keep it moving here, but y'all can feel free to interrupt at any time if you have any other questions. So now that we've gone through the data report, we want to kind of norm on a protocol that you can use to analyze data on a regular basis. This protocol focuses on 3 key steps to identify problems to re-engage students on to support mastery. The first step is looking at that class average score. Second step is reviewing the problem average scores. And then the third step is analyzing and drawing conclusions from the common wrong answers. And so what we want to do is I want you to, Charmaine's going to share this link in the chat to another data report. And we're going to use this data report to complete the protocol together. And I'll get us started off, and then we'll kind of hear what y'all have to say based on the data itself. So I'm just going to start by going out of presentation mode here. Okay. And in opening this report, I'm going to open it up over here. The first question is around what is the class average and what is your primary takeaway from this data point? So when I look at the report, average score is 72. My primary takeaway from that point might be that, well, it seems like most students are doing okay on this assignment. Maybe some students aren't, doing so well. Maybe they need some more support. 72 isn't, it's not terrible, but it's not like fantastic. So that would kind of be my conclusion that I draw from that or take away from that. You may decide that because it's a 72, maybe your threshold is for mastery is like 80%. So maybe you look at that and you say, oh, overall the class is not mastered scale factor and it's worth revisiting some problems. So on this next one, I want us to take a look, and now that we've kind of looked at the class average, think about the problem averages. So looking at this data report, what are 2 problems where students struggled and there was a common wrong answer? And you can feel free to unmute and share loud or share in the chat.
Part 2, part A.
All right, so problem 2, part A. Yep. And Charmaine, you're good to jot this down in the awesome. So problem 2, part A, and then what's our other common wrong answer?
Is that problem 3 where the ratio is 4 to 7?
That's right. So the common wrong answer there was 57% of incorrect students put the ratio 4 to 7. Absolutely. So those are our two sort of common wrong answers or problems where students might have struggled.
Sorry, I'm not contributing. I was in it, and now I went to click on it, and it's doing the same. It's doing the same thing it did to Deborah. It's telling me that I'm not authorized. And I have to log in. So, but I was in it before. So.
Oh, that's strange. Are you able to re-log in and then click the link in the chat?
It said I wasn't authorized, and so I'm trying to look at it on my screen, on your screen, but it's too small for my bad eyes.
Well, let me see if I can make this bit a little bit bigger. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I'll be okay. So yeah.
Okay. All right. And so then and Charmaine, I think we're on the blank slide here. It's where you want to be writing that stuff in. So that was problem 2. Yeah, problem 2 part A and problem 3. What would be your primary takeaway looking at the data on that problem? So if we just thinking about problem 2 part A, going over here, what would be your primary takeaway looking at this common wrong answer and this percentage?
Well, I have to go back and read what it's asking them to do first.
So we can even we can expand that out and see what the problem was. So this was Noah drew a scaled copy of polygon P and labeled it polygon Q. And their job, and then it says polygon P is 5 square units. What scale factor did Noah apply to polygon P to create polygon Q? So this is about scale factor.
I'm sorry, do you mind repeating the question that we're looking at?
Sure, it's problem 2 part A. So Noah drew a scaled copy of polygon P and labeled it polygon Q. Polygon P is 5 square units. And so the question's asking, what scale factor did Noah apply to polygon P to create polygon Q? And then the two common wrong answers we got here were 1 and 9.
So 1, where they put the, I guess is it 1 was because Q was in 1 square, from what I can tell.
Right, that actually totally sounds like something the student would do, right?
Right.
So it may be that they just misunderstood what portion of the diagram they were supposed to be looking at.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. And just going back to our protocol here, so we could say that there was some sort of student misunderstanding. And the common wrong answer there was 9 or 1 and 9. Thinking about that problem, just pulling it up here, what would be the correct answer? And we understand different teachers teach different grade levels of math, so feel free to be like, I'm not sure. We can totally share that.
I'm sorry, I just really can't see the problem. So I can't answer just because I can't see it. It's.
All right, even in the slide here.
Yeah, it's very small for me on my computer right now. So I'm still trying to log back in again, but it's not letting me.
If you want to go back to presenter mode, Brian, I can maybe like presenter mode and then,
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not sure if this will help, but so
Yeah.
basically, there you go.
I was going to say, I can see now where they came up with 9. So that was the part that they had to remove. was the 9 squares. And
Mhm.
and so I can see where the 9 came from. I can see where the 1 came from because it's the Q. And then as far as polygon P is 5 square units.
So
I don't really know. I'm sorry.
no, don't be sorry. It's all good. It's all good. So basically, and I'll, of course, that starts the timer for some reason. So the correct answer here is supposed to be 3. And if we think about why that's the case, right? And focusing on that common wrong answer of 9, we can see here that if the original was 5 square units, we've got 5 sets of 9 here, right? Square root is your scale factor is your square root of the difference in area, right? So it would actually be the square root of 9. So basically the teacher, or the student rather, saw, oh, okay, I see, there are 5 sets of 9 here, so it must be 9. But when they should have taken that 9 and taken the square root of it to get the scale factor, which is 3, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of that most common wrong answer, and I'll just go back to edit mode here. The most common wrong answer was 9. For the misconception, you might put something like the student failed to take the square root. And we can actually even go to this next slide. I have a little bit more detail on that as well. So students seem to think the area of a shape changes by the scale factor instead of the square of the scale factor, right? So again, they saw, oh, there are 9 times as many blocks. So it's, that must be the scale factor, but it's actually the square root of that. One instructional next step you might take is using the My Favorite No activity, which we actually have a version of on our website as well, and display the problem for students to see with that incorrect answer of 9 and an explanation, and have students identify what the correct answer is, and then follow up and share why 3 is actually the correct answer and not 9. So it could fall, you could conduct basically a student discussion based on this, and then clarify any misunderstanding. But the point is, when you're seeing those low averages, and especially when you're seeing common wrong answers, thinking about, okay, what misconception is behind this? And what next step can I take instructionally to support students based on this misconception that I've identified? I'll pause here and just see if folks have any questions. Again, feel free to share any questions as we sort of wrap up here. We're going to move on from this piece, but I am curious as we close out, what do you find is most impactful from analyzing report data from assessments?
Well, for one thing, now I've used assessments the last couple of years, and now our district is doing the paid version of it. So we're supposed to be, which we've not really been trained as to what the paid version is going to do for us yet. But as far as looking at the reports, on the ones that I don't have to self-score, it's a very quick way to see what part of the lesson the students really understood and where I might need to go back and clarify some information, because there's a lot of misconceptions that can come from working, and so it kind of allows me to go back and look at that.
And think about how much time it would take you to figure that out if you were having to hand grade all the student papers and look at the trends then, right? So the idea is that, you still have that routine of analyzing data, but we're cutting out all that time you have to spend hand grading all the papers to see these trends. And you can even right there in class look at that data in real time and decide, okay, I'm going to do this take this next instructional step while the content is fresh with students, and intervene right now and nip this in the bud before I move on. So it just gives you some additional flexibility and options, and still allows you to have a life and not spend all your free time grading papers, right?
Exactly, because it gives you that time for error analysis too, because you know you don't have to grade it, so you can just kind of look at those problems they got wrong and figure out where you need to go next.
Exactly. So I know we're getting close on time here. Charmaine is going to share our feedback survey, and we would really appreciate it if you could take about 30 seconds just to fill that out for us. We do take all feedback from teachers and use that to modify our sessions in the future. Our session today, it was 8:23, and it's called From Learning Data to Learning Growth. And what we showed you today was how to interpret those key data points in the assessments assignment report, how to think about drawing conclusions based on the data about student successes and challenges, and determining high leverage next steps based on the data. And if y'all have any additional questions that you want to follow up on, you can feel free to reach out to us at contact@assistments.org, and we'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So it sounds like one of you may be in Bossier Parish.
She is. Deborah is. I literally messaged her. I was like, "Are you in Bossier?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'll be working with you."
Yeah, so basically, the platform itself is always free. Essentially, what Bossier is paying for is making sure that you have the professional learning support with building in your assessments routine and all of that good stuff. So what you got today was kind of like a short summary version of the more in-depth professional learning that you'll be provided with. And then you'll also be getting on regular support from experienced assessments teachers as you build up your routine. But we're definitely happy to have you with us today and kind of get a preview of what that looks like.
Well, I appreciate it. It kind of helps clarify because, like I said, we kind of started using the assessments a couple years ago, and we would dig into it, but we weren't real sure what we were looking at. But this is
100%.
definitely helping because I was able to go back and look at some data from some previous classes that then what the kids did, and that's like this geometry session versus getting into the other modules when I can look at the linear equations, that self grades versus the geometry where I have to go in and grade it all. So.
Absolutely. And so as we help you all to build your capacity with assessments, we'll be there every step of the way to make sure that you have a super clear understanding of the data, how to use it, and all that good stuff. So like I said, we're definitely happy that y'all joined us today. We're basically and once you finish with the feedback survey, we're finished. So I'll stay on if any folks have, or if y'all have any additional questions. But again, we appreciate y'all joining us today and learning about assessments data.